enter a well by accident. It's not your style.
What can I do?
Well, you can stop looking at me as if I'm the crazy one.
Well, I must say I'm amazed that she swam up here against the wind and the tide.
She didn't swim. Her mate pushed her.
He what?
Didn't you anchor your boat in here last night?
I did, just out there.
He followed you.
He what?
He followed you.
Welcome to the Cinematic Flashback podcast. Get ready to hop into the Wayback Machine as we journey through the wild, bold, and unforgettable films of the 1970s. Each episode, we break down a classic movie or a forgotten gem, seeing how it performed then and now, and wrapping things up by asking, did it groove through the decades or did it lose its beat? I am your host, Chuck Bryan, and today we are reviewing Michael Anderson's 1977 film Orca, starring Richard Harris, Charlotte Rampling, Will Sampson, and Bo Derek. This is our first film in our Jawsploitation month, where we are looking at two films that are swimming in the frenzy that Jaws left in its wake. Joining me is my first mate, Matt Sargent. Matt, good to see you again. How have you been?
I have been well, and aye, Captain.
Arrgh.
We're ready to set sail.
I can't believe that we are already in August. The summer is almost over. We're looking forward to our fall lineup, but yet we are going to take just a little breather to look at some films that are, to be very honest, are very new to me. Have you seen any of these before?
No, I have not. And actually, that's not 100% true. The closing scene, I remember. So it may be that I did see this, but I intentionally or unintentionally forgot about it.
You know, it's really funny because I have the exact same memory of maybe seeing this on TV at some point, and I remember the scenes at the end. But yeah, we started season 2 with French Connection 2, and we spent some time talking about sequels. The movies that come back for a second round after a successful first outing. But we're kind of moving into something a little bit different with Orca and Piranha. These really aren't sequels at all. They're just something completely different. Because if Steven Spielberg hadn't released Jaws in 1975, I honestly do not believe that either of these movies would have existed.
I agree with you 100%. Although I haven't seen Piranha before, I'm pretty sure that neither of these films would have been made, and that's probably a move in the right direction.
Well, it's funny, the level of killer animal movies that spawned off. There's a movie called Prophecy about a mutated bear. There's a movie about an alligator that lives in the sewers that, I guess somebody flushed an alligator when they were a kid. Yeah.
Hilarious.
And then there's, there's Swarm, which kind of goes into the disaster movie. So it takes this killer animal and elevates it to a movie like Towering Inferno.
Yeah, I think this is a response to any kind of film that kind of preys on our fears as humans, as someone outside their element and being pursued, maybe no longer the hunter, but the hunted. And I think that's the theme that you're seeing on a lot of these. And yeah, they're great kind of movies to go to and check out for an hour and a half or 2 hours and kind of see the action and what's going on. Definitely the candy corn of the candy world.
Yeah. Well, these are kind of, I call it Jawsploitation.
I think it's perfect name. It's absolutely perfect.
and last time I was talking about trucksploitation, right? Because you had some good truck movies and then all of a sudden it's like everybody's making less than top shelf.
Yeah, I think that's 100% true. You've heard it all before, when someone says, this is Jaws meets freshwater fishing, this is Jaws, but with a killer whale, and immediately they throw money at it because that's the way Hollywood does. Unfortunately, thousands of fabulous news stories out there. Again, We'll touch on my standard theme of why are you making sequels when there's so much great new material out there? Why are you making cheap copies when and honestly, in this film, when we'll talk about it as we go forward, I'm going to point out some places where this could have been a great movie, right? It could have been a fabulously good movie, and I'll point out where I think it went wrong.
It was this close, right?
I think it's a bit close, a little bit farther.
At this point, Matt's arms are well away. I started off with a little finger of like an inch, and then Matt's arms went really wide.
But again, and we will share with us as we go forward in this podcast, it's talking about there are highlights in this film. Some of them are maybe unintentional hilarity. And some of them are places where the story is kind of interesting. So we'll talk about it as we go forward.
Sure. Matt, who is talking to us this week?
So we got this question from Spotify from listener The Eternal 73. And I quote, "Hi guys, great episode. Is there a chance you could cover Friedkin's Cruising? Cheers." End quote. Technically, Cruising is a 1980 film, but it was filmed in the late 70s. So we'll throw it out to our listeners. Should movies filmed in the 70s but released in 1980 count? Or should we stick strictly to release dates? Let us know what you think on that question, and we welcome that input.
Matt, last month, you and I did something kind of fun. We went on a podcast and we talked about a movie.
We did. It was fun. We were invited to talk about a movie called Heist. It was really a lot of fun speaking with Jeff, and I hope everybody reaches out to download that episode and other episodes of A Film By podcast.
Just to be fair, I reached out to Jeff and asked him if he might consider doing Eye of the Needle, starring our friend Donald Sutherland. Like he's our friend. At this point, we're just fanboys. But it's also directed by Richard Marquand, who directed Return of the Jedi. So I pitched that to him, and let's keep our fingers crossed that we might get to talk about that film finally.
Well, I think we pitched it to him that he should do that, and he should then have us back.
Yes.
Because it's one of the films I really want to review. I love that film.
In fact, he could have you on there without me.
No, we're a team.
I think it would be an entertaining episode. I would love to hear that.
I have not watched it since literally when I saw it. So I have not rewatched it. The film, it's based on the book by Ken Follett. So anyway, how did this movie happen, Chuck?
Matt, when I started doing the How Did This Movie section, I was always worried at what point will I find nothing about how a film happened. But Orca did not disappoint. And it really starts this way. It starts with getting a phone call in the middle of the night. And that usually is not a good thing. So Luciano Vincenzoni was asleep when his phone rang. And on the other end was his friend and producer, Dino De Laurentiis. He was one of the biggest producers in the business. Over a career that lasted more than 60 years, he produced everything from Fellini classics like La Strada all the way to Hollywood films like Serpico, King Kong, Flash Gordon, Conan the Barbarian, the 1984 Dune, and Blue Velvet. Dino wanted his own blockbuster creature movie. But instead of calling a horror writer, he called Luciano Vincenzoni. Now, I'm going to guarantee that most people will not recognize that name unless they happen to be fans of spaghetti Western films, because Vincenzoni helped write two of Sergio Leone's greatest spaghetti Western films for a few dollars more, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And that's a really odd combination to start a story about a movie about a killer whale. So back to that phone call. According to Vincenzoni, Dino's first question was super simple. He just says, have you seen Jaws? And, when Vincenzoni wipes the sleep out of his eyes, he says, yes. And Dino says, good. Now find me a sea creature that's more formidable than a great white shark. Okay, great. Vincenzoni's a writer. He's not a marine biologist. So he calls his brother, who's also not a marine biologist, but a zoologist. And his brother suggested to him the killer whale. So Vincenzoni is working with fellow screenwriter Sergio Donata Vincenzoni developed the story that would become Orca. This project starts to attract some serious talent. Novelist Arthur Herzog, who was famous for writing pulp science fiction novels, took an early version of the screenplay and turned it into a novel that ultimately did not resemble the final product. And this is the exact same thing that happened with Jaws 2 novelization. Then Robert Towne, who was fresh off of his Oscar win for Chinatown, was brought in to polish the screenplay for English-speaking audiences. And his work on the film went uncredited. And it is my opinion that it is Towne's screenplay changes that attracted a lot of the talent that signed on for this film. You have Michael Anderson, who came aboard to direct after the success of Logan's Run. Richard Harris and Charlotte Rampling signed on to star, and composer Ennio Morricone was brought on to write the music. And Morricone also wrote the scores for The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, as well as For a Few Dollars More, as well as many, many more. So that's a pretty remarkable lineup for what I always remembered as the killer whale version of Jaws. I think all of that really surprised me once I got into it. But maybe that's exactly why Orca feels a little bit different from the wave of killer animal movies that followed Jaws. Dino De Laurentiis set out to make another Jaws, but instead he made Orca. And that is how this film happened.
That's crazy. And I love the callback to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and For a Few Dollars More, two of my favorite old spaghetti westerns. And I think I've mentioned on the podcast before, my brother was a huge fan of spaghetti westerns. So we watched them all. I love those. You make great points. And it is interesting. It is different than a Jaws. I think the difference is the creature is very intelligent and portrayed so in the film. And I think that brings a different kind of fear into the film than with Jaws. Jaws, you know, the shark is just a killing machine, perfectly designed to do one thing: eat and make more white sharks, right? That's literally all it does. So brainless, essentially. And in this movie, we really see the creature as a character with what is maybe anthropomorphized feelings and stuff like that, but that's how they're portraying it. And to some extent it makes it more scary because this thing is incredibly powerful. You know, and we see during the film that, you know, some of it is attributed to blind rage.
It's doing it on purpose, right?
Yeah.
Well, we are ready to dive into the production and casting details of Orca, but we need to step away for a quick break, and we will be right back.
It's a cinematic flashback. Let the show begin. It's a cinematic flashback. Let the show begin.
The ancient Romans called him Orca or Canis, Latin for bringer of death. He is without challenge the most powerful animal on the globe, the killer whale. Orca has 48 teeth, set in 2 impressive rows. In some respects, the orca's intelligence may be even superior to man's. They remain loyal to one mate for life. As parents, they are exemplary, better than many human beings. And like human beings, they have a profound instinct for vengeance. An innocent creature is destroyed by an act of human cruelty, and the ultimate battle of man against nature begins. Dino De Laurentiis presents Orca.
Welcome back. Let's get into the production details and talk about this cast. Orca was released on July 22nd, 1977, and distributed by Paramount Pictures. The film was produced by Famous Films Production and was international co-production between the United States, the United Kingdom, and Italy. Michael Anderson directed the film. The screenplay was written by Luciano Vincenzoni and Sergio Donata, and based on the story that they developed for the project. The movie was photographed by Ted Moore, whose credits include James Bond classics Dr. No, From Russia with Love, and Goldfinger. Editing duties were handled by John Bloom, Marion Rothman, and Ralph Winters. Music was provided by Ennio Morricone. The production budget has been reported between $6 and $7.5 million, and the film earned approximately $14.7 million at the box office, which does not quite surpass the 2.5 times. So this film officially did not make money. Critics were understandably brutal. Today, the film sits at 10% on Rotten Tomatoes, while audiences are only slightly kinder at 33%. So while Orca never becomes the next Jaws, it has developed a loyal cult following over the years. Matt, who do we have starring in this film?
Well, of course, the Orca, which is played by a variety of whales filmed in the wild and, I believe, at SeaWorld. And if you are an astute observer and know anything about orcas in captivity, you will notice that the orcas switch out.
Yes.
And they do a nice job of trying to keep in tune with the orca of the one we care about by using a nice little chunk out of his dorsal fin that was removed when things were happening. So that's kind of cool. You get to see real orca films in the wild. And there's a few shots of a family group of orcas hunting. They're beautiful, absolutely beautiful animals. So can't get enough of seeing the orcas. They are an amazing animal. I actually saw them in the wild when I was up on the Aleutian Islands.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and the island that we were on, orcas would chase sea lions up onto the beach. We were there when that happened. I mean, it's rough, man. It's rough. They chase them up onto the shore, and the orcas themselves go shooting up. I think there's actually a famous film of that actually happening, but we got to see a very small sort of vignette of that when we were on the island.
It struck me that if anybody else other than Steven Spielberg would have directed Jaws, I think this is the same way that somebody else would have approached making Jaws, because I am sure that just filming creatures in the natural wild and then superimposing maybe with either an animatronic shark that's less articulate followed by dorsal fins that are being dragged around. I think they would have used similar techniques to what Anderson does in this film.
Well, and I think that was Steven Spielberg's genius, is that our imagination is what's driving
Spielberg's genius and the inability for a mechanical shark to actually operate within salt water. Go figure.
Yeah, but happenstance, it works out better, because we do see in the film of the orca, we definitely see him in what appears to be a tank, but you have to suspend a little disbelief. I understand that.
Yes.
You do see some wild shots, but then in the movie, there's some things that happen that look just like the tricks that orcas in captivity do at SeaWorld. Just, they're not getting a ball or a piece of fish. They're getting something else.
I always wonder what the audience of 1977, if their brains just, maybe recognized it, but it wasn't as obvious. But to me, of course, maybe it was.
No, I think you're right. Remember, our experience up until that point informs what we're seeing. So when we're seeing, it's like, yeah, of course you're going to see a little edge of the captivity pool or something, and you just ignore it.
Yeah.
Right. Nowadays, we're just, with CGI, it's so perfect. Just to talk about Star Wars real quick. That was one of the shocking things about Star Wars, is up to that point, when you had a spaceship, you could almost see the hand holding it in front of a black screen, right?
A little wire.
Yeah. Well, and they used wires in Star Wars, but the way they used the film, the angles, and showing the size, like even that opening scene that blows you away in Star Wars, where the Star Destroyer comes over your head. Shocking. They've never seen anything like it.
We talked about this in our Logan's Run episode, ironically, also directed by Michael Anderson, that it was like, we came out, was like, I can't believe that this movie opens within the same time frame that we get Star Wars. It's just such an amazing difference between the old school and the new way of doing it. Now, maybe for Orca, it was much more of a financial reason.
Well, and I think we can give it some grace. I mean, come on. We're looking at this in 2026, and it was filmed in 1976.
Which is amazing in and of itself.
So let's move on to our next human star.
Oh my gosh.
Which is Richard Harris. He plays Captain.
What is Richard Harris doing in this film?
Well, he's doing everything he can to keep it afloat. Let's put it that way.
Fair play. Fair play.
So he's a fisherman who attempts to capture the killer whale that sets the film's tragic events in motion. Some other facts about Richard Harris. I mean, everybody's probably heard of him. He was born in Limerick, Ireland in 1930.
I did not know that he was an Irish actor because I know him from his film where he played Dumbledore in 2 of the Harry Potter films. And I always thought he was British.
Right. He earned his first Academy Award nomination for The Sporting Life in 1963. He starred in acclaimed films, including Camelot, A Man Called Horse. That's where I remember him most for, is A Man Called Horse. A great movie. And The Molly Maguires before Orca.
Mm-hmm.
He's known for portraying charismatic, flawed men with tremendous emotional depth.
Oh, wow. That describes Nolan.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was an interesting choice to have him. He's a great actor. I do have to say it's almost formulaic to hire, an Irish actor with an accent to play this role, because it sort of seems a lot like Quint, although Quint was trying to play somebody from New England. He clearly didn't appear to be from New England. Through the whole movie, I thought he was from I always thought he was from Europe, probably from Ireland, but then he tells the story of the Indianapolis, and I'm like, okay, I guess he's pretending to be from New England.
Well, we've talked about Robert Shaw multiple times. We've covered multiple Robert Shaw films.
Yeah.
And I think every time we always say, okay, which accent will he have today?
For
and
how
at
long?
What point, and then at what point will it become Irish?
Which is great. Not to say he's not a great actor. He's a great actor.
Absolutely not.
He's fantastic. So
Charlotte Rampling plays Rachel, who is a marine biologist who spent her years studying killer whales. And throughout the film, she serves as our guide and explaining a lot of the narrative dumping of the orca behavior. And at the same time, she's warning Nolan that he has underestimated the intelligence and emotional capacity of the animal. Now, I recognized Charlotte Rampling from her movie or her appearance in the 1974 John Borman classic Zardoz, where she starred opposite of Sean Connery playing Consuela. She plays almost a very similar character. She was born in England, obviously, and she became one of Europe's most acclaimed actresses during the 1960s and 1970s. She's known for taking intelligently, psychologically complex roles, such as the Night Porter in Farewell, My Lovely. And her career continues to span more than 6 decades, earning her Academy Award and Emmy nominations later in life. So she is still working.
Well, I 100% recognized her. I recognized her and her voice, but I could not place what I had seen her in. And I went and looked it up, and it's because she's been in a lot of things. So it's one of those familiar actresses. I think her natural kind of snootiness, maybe one might say, in this film is actually appropriate, because she's a marine biologist and she knows a lot about orcas, and it seems like nobody really knows, even in this fishing village, anything about them except for maybe some of the Native Americans who have lore about them. So she delivers a solid performance. She's in the whole film, obviously, and she also provides sort of that narrative backdrop. And I think maybe I was wondering about it, because we all seem to, at least I know a lot about killer whales, orcas. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe it's this film that caused that, because I don't think a lot of people knew about them before this film. I mean, certainly people had seen them in SeaWorld and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't know, it wasn't in the common zeitgeist like it is today. People know about what a killer whale is, an orca, how they hunt, how they are pen packs, and how amazing they are. But I don't think that was the case. So it was really important to have that narrative backdrop.
I think there's been a lot of, I guess from a ecological standpoint, I think there's been a lot more notice in the last 10 years on holding a lot of these animals in captivity, and whether or not that's a good idea or not. There's actually another movie that came out much later that describes some of the practices. It's a good documentary. Definitely worth the time to take a look at. But obviously here in the 1970s, we're not there yet. You mentioned the Micmac hunter played by Will Sampson. His name is Jacob Umalak, and he understands the orcas more through years of experience rather than scientific study. Again, like Rachel, Will Sampson, he is a member of the Creek Nation from Oklahoma. He made his acting debut as Chief Bromden in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which we covered about a year ago. He stood at 6'7". He was a pretty big guy, but he was also known for conveying emotion with very little dialogue. He went in to appear in The White Buffalo, The Outlaw Josie Wales, and Poltergeist 2: The Other Side. And he is widely regarded as one of the most influential Native American actors of the 1970s and 1980s.
I 100% agree. I recognized him immediately from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He's great. And then I also remembered him from The Outlaw Josie Wales, where he also plays a really interesting and, at times very funny character. Both great performances. I'm a big fan.
Again, I have to ask, what is Will Sampson, Charlotte Rampling, and Richard Harris doing in this film?
I think they were probably hired with the promise of making something different. You know, sometimes these things fall short, and they've already turned in their performances. What happens in the editing room and that sort of thing is not really up to them.
This movie does not seem to be the film that should have attracted this much talent. Yeah. It's part that was very surprising to me. Anyways.
I personally think that someone did a great job of, quote unquote, selling them on the concept of the film. And once they signed on to the film, it's very difficult for an actor to sort of extract themselves once they've made a commitment. So, and honestly, I don't think they want to, because until filming is happening, they don't really know. They've read.
No, nobody knows.
And obviously there was some churn to the story because there's the first, and then the novel comes out of that, and then the rewrite. So I think they were just committed, and like anybody, if they say they're going to do it, they're going to do it. And also, there's a payday associated with it. I'll bet you that, if they spent $13 million, was it $13 million
something like that,
or something like that, and
it made about 14, so it barely broke even.
Right. So, but I'm just saying that the cost to make the film is partly the salaries of the people that are the actors. So maybe there was some money to be made. I don't know.
Sure.
Our next actor is kind of a smaller part. It's Peter Hooton, and he plays Paul, the young crewman aboard Nolan's boat who finds himself caught up in the increasingly dangerous hunt for the killer whale. He built his career with guest appearances on television series, including The Waltons, Mannix, The Mod Squad, and Marcus Welby, MB. I actually remember him on The Waltons. I recognize his face, and I used to watch The Waltons all the time.
Love The Waltons.
That show. Orca was one of his few major studio film roles. Later starred as Stephen Strange in the 1978 television movie Doctor Strange, Marvel's first live-action adaptation of the character.
I know you probably remembered the Incredible Hulk show with Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno.
Yeah.
Obviously now everybody probably knows Doctor Strange from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but there was a time when they were really trying to spring off of the popularity of the Incredible Hulk with other Marvel characters.
I'll be honest with you, I was never a comics, a graphic novel person at all.
Yeah.
So a lot of that stuff was, if you're in that world of graphic novels and comic books and stuff like that, this was second nature. As soon as somebody said Doctor Strange or Stephen Strange, you kind of knew the backstory. I'll be honest with you, I knew nothing about Doctor Strange until he appeared in the major motion film, which was his origin story. I knew nothing about, I didn't even know what he was. I did, like everybody knows what Superman is, what Batman is and Spider-Man. I had no idea who's Strange was. Now, I love that character. I think it was played great in the movies. Amazing. So really fun. But this is the problem with someone who wasn't into graphic novels and that kind of lore. Anyway, back to this film.
I'm guessing that we could go on the YouTube and we could probably find the Doctor Strange movie. But the next actress who is in this film was Bo Derek, and she plays Annie, who is a crew member aboard Nolan's boat. This was just 2 years before she became an international star with Blake Edwards' romantic comedy 10 in 1979. launching many, many bad decisions at local hair salons at that time. Her iconic beach running scene in 10 made her one of the biggest pop cultural sensations of the late 70s.
Yeah, the Farrah Fawcett poster and Bo Derek 10 poster was on every teenage boy's wall. Not mine, but everybody had them, and it was pretty fantastic. And it's cool to see her in this film because she's a little miscast. I mean, anybody who would work on a boat ostensively, it's hard work. They're going to be like kind of hard-boiled and grizzled. She's still very beautiful and obviously the love interest of one of the other crew members, and just kind of odd that she's there.
Okay, well, we're going to leave Bo Derek and we're going to talk about Robert Carradine, who plays Ken. Ken is Rachel's assistant who joins Nolan's final voyage in an effort to track down the rogue Orca. He appears at the beginning of the film driving a little rubber dinghy, then he kind of disappears, and then he appears later on. Robert Carradine, we recognize the last name because he is a member of the legendary Carradine acting family, which includes his father, John, and brother David and Keith. You may remember we talked about Keith Carradine in the film McCabe and Mrs. Miller. He was later wildly known as Louis Skolnick in the Revenge of the Nerds films.
Bringing up the rear is Scott Walker, who plays Al Swain, a local fisherman who becomes the voice of the South Harbor community. Muppet fans may recognize him as Snake Walker, one of Doc Hopper's henchmen in the Muppet movie, 1979. Are we going to cover that movie? It's a 70s movie.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Would you want to cover that movie?
The Muppet movie? I thought it was hilarious. Yeah. I remember watching it. It was funny.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I need to figure out what kind
Where are you going to fit that into?
That would be. Oh, we'll figure something out. I mean, the 70s is just a treasure trove of films that if you seek it, it will come to you.
Wasn't there other puppet movies? Maybe we could do a puppet movie one. Was The Never-Ending Story in the 70s?
Oh, that was the 80s, but what a fantastic flick.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Okay, let's take a look at the back of the box of this DVD. Matt, tell us what we're going to see.
Well, this is a little bit of what might be on the back of the box, but let's deliver it like it's an intro, okay? Sleek, intelligent, beautiful, and hell-bent on revenge. Dino De Laurentiis and director Michael Anderson join forces to present the rousing action-adventure tale of Orca, the killer whale. It's the story of one powerful being against another, a strong, determined fisherman by the name of Captain Nolan versus an equally determined killer whale. When the giant whale's pregnant mate is maimed and killed by Nolan, the whale seeks vengeance, smashing boats, attacking Seacoast Village, and eventually luring his human adversaries into a final confrontation in the marine creature's own Arctic turf. Charlotte Rampling, Will Sampson, and Bo Derek, in her feature film debut, also star in the seafaring epic brimming with nail-biting suspense and spectacular special effects.
Ooh, they are... Somebody paid the marketing department a lot of money for that.
Yeah, they've got a great cast. We've got a lot to say about this, but first, we're going to pull the rig over for a quick break. Stick around and we'll be right back with our thoughts on Orca.
It's a cinematic flashback. Let the show begin.
I'm Amber.
I'm Dayton.
I am Disney's Jean.
I'm Robert.
And I'm Tim.
And we are the hosts of the Docking Bay 77 podcast.
And we're here to give you a little tease of what to expect in 2026.
In January, we're bringing back our very popular sci-fi movie month. That's one iconic film from the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and 80s.
You all know that we love Disney on this broadcast. I mean, it's literally in my name. So Amber and I are going to be going to spend some quality time with you looking at their live action films from the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. Think 20,000 Leagues, Apple Dumpling Gang, and so much more. Now, the year 1977 was an important year for pop culture. We're talking game-changing, earth-shattering, culture-defining moments. So we are doing our longest series ever, looking at films and albums from that legendary year. Docking Bay 77, where Broadway references meet the voice of reason. And it's healthy for you. We're just a bunch of nerds discussing what we're listening to, watching, and reading.
And as always, encouraging you to listen to more music, read more books, and watch more movies.
And remember, physical media is better than streaming. Docking Bay 77, your 2026 adventure starts here.
It's a cinematic flashback. Let the show begin.
Can I help you?
You know the men all meet. They talk of you, and they are angry.
I understand.
They say you're a coward for not to go out and kill this whale.
I have my reasons.
I believe you.
Why?
I see in your face fear, but it is not anything alive. It is of some spirit, I think. I come only to warn you. Perhaps it is best you go hunt this devil, no matter what your reasons are. If there is any more harm done to this town by your whale...
My whale? Thank you for the warning.
I know what my ancestors would have done.
What?
They have this shaman sew a small-skinned whale and stuff it with the livers of birds. They make piss water on it and throw it into the sea with some words. If all has been done right, the monster spirit flies out of its mouth.
Welcome back. All right. From here on out, we're going to talk about our thoughts on Orca and might inadvertently give some spoilers. You can rent Orca at the usual places.
You know, I had not seen this film. I don't know how old I was at the time, but I remember opening the newspaper and seeing Orca, and I thought it was a PG rating. And so I really wanted to go see it, but of course, nobody was going to take me.
I was probably... It was the summer of, when was it released? 1977?
77, yeah. So I was 10.
I would turn 16 that year, so I was 15. So my freshman year, I think it was after my freshman year in high school.
Okay.
I do not remember going to the film, but I think I saw it on TV. But I don't think I saw the whole thing. I definitely do not remember most of the film, except for the end.
Yeah. I thought I was going to laugh more at this film than what I ultimately did. And I don't want to narrate the film, but it helps to understand the character of Nolan and then juxtapose that to the motives of the whale. So we learn that Nolan's wife and unborn child were killed in a car accident due to a collision with a drunk driver. And in this movie, Nolan was trying to capture the male orca and bring it into captivity, but his harpoon nicks the dorsal fin of the male orca and hits the female. The female was pregnant with the pup of the male orca.
But you really don't find out about Nolan's past. You get some flashbacks, but you find out the details later. You suspect there's some tragedy in Nolan's past that may be similar, and I don't know.
I wonder if that was a storyline brought in by Robert Towne, or if maybe Luciano had that in originally.
It seems to me that it was added with flashbacks.
I was not expecting that opening.
Right. Yeah.
I was expecting woman swimming in the water.
Well, you may be forgetting in the opening scene, which is pretty hilarious because this is where I had my first laugh.
Oh.
So in the beginning, they're opening, Nolan's out in his boat. The marine biologist and her assistant are out in a semi-rigid inflatable boat.
Yeah.
And one of them, they're diving and a shark comes along.
Da-dum.
Yeah, the shark comes along, right? So the shark is very threatening and you're really scared and you're like, oh my gosh, this is just like Jaws. This person's going to be attacked and he's hiding. And you know, like the end of Jaws is someone's hiding down on the bottom.
But then
what comes but an orca comes and knocks the living crap out of this Jaws.
It knocks the shark out of the water.
So it was so on the nose of, we're going to replace Jaws with something even more formidable, a killer whale. At that point, I was just like, okay, good golly. So yeah. What about you, Chuck?
Yeah. I'm in the same semi-rigid dinghy as you are out there on the water. you approach this movie with a low bar, right?
Yeah.
But once it gets past this opening sequence of the terrible shark effects, the movie began to take a dramatic turn that I wasn't expecting. And some of the photography in this film by Ted Moore, again, remember, he's the guy who shot a lot of the early James Bond films. It was better shot than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I think that's all fair.
When we were describing the character of the whale earlier, we talked about the different ways in which they filmed live whales. But what about the variety of techniques for let's just call it the whale doubles? Because I think we have maybe some slight articulation in some of the stunt whales, if you will, like where they would use I don't know if it was a fully mechanical like they did with Bruce, or they had someone back behind it pushing it up into a boat.
Mm-hmm.
And after the female dies, there's a scene where the pod is in a funeral procession with the male pushing the corpse of the female along. You don't see the whales breaching. So I suppose that all of that must have been the prop fins that they were dragging underneath the water, much like they would do with Bruce's fins in some of the sequences in Jaws.
Yeah.
I thought a lot of that was very convincing. I thought the parts that seemed less convincing was when they actually showed the real whale.
Well, the other thing about it is, and I don't know if you guys know, and maybe people in the audience recognize this, but when you watch the film, you'll see some of the whales suffer from their dorsal fin curling over, which is indicative of an orca in captivity. They don't really know why it happens, but it invariably happens in an orca in captivity. And you'll see in the film, you'll see a bunch of shots with orca with the fin folded over. When you see the real live orcas out in the ocean, they're straight up, straight as an arrow. So that was kind of disconcerting for me. So that really was a telltale where I'm like, okay, this is in the tank, this is in the ocean, this is in the tank, this is in the ocean. So I think they did a good job with the prosthetic or whatever they used to pretend, when they had to do some stuff. So I think it didn't stand out to me as a problem, like when he was ramming boats and stuff, which is good. It means that, it was real enough and the shot was limited enough that it didn't just stand out like, oh, there's the underwater motor driving it into a balsa wood boat or something.
I want to ask you about the outlaw Josie Wales. Think about how that film started. Josie is out in the farm. He's working with his son. He's tilling the land, and his son is helping him to remove rocks. And then the little boy gets called in by his mother. Shortly thereafter, Josie sees smoke arising from the distance in the direction of his homestead. So he runs over there, and he notices that there are soldiers who have set his farm on fire and have dragged his wife off and has killed his little boy. And then the remainder of the outlaw Josie Wales turns into kind of a revenge Western flick. Now, given that this film was written by Luciano, who also wrote The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and For a Few Dollars More, is Orca more of a revenge Western? What do you think?
Oh, I think it's absolutely a revenge Western. It's just the farmer whose family was murdered happens to be a whale. And I think that's a great parallel. I mean, it's literally exactly what happens with the whale. If you watch The Outlaw Josie Whale, he just goes on, he's going to kill everybody either is coming after him or had anything to do with murdering his family.
Yeah.
And that drives the rest of the entire movie. I think that's pretty similar to what's happening here. The difference is they follow the whale until the whale finally gets him where he wants him so that he can murder them all.
Well, not all of them. Somebody has to remain to narrate the movie.
The movie clearly is trying to give us some empathy for both Nolan and the whale. And I think they do that through Nolan's tragedy of losing his wife and unborn child, and through the whale's tragedy of his mate and their unborn child, right? So there's that parallel. And I think it works because you sort of understand Nolan at first when you meet him, he's kind of brusque and he's just trying to make a buck. He's trying to capture a whale to sell it. He's not really trying to kill a whale. Then once all this happens, I mean, he's horror struck.
Yes.
He would take it back in an instant. He would undo everything he did.
Yeah.
That is absolutely clear.
And that's why his character elevates this movie above my low bar expectation line.
Yeah, I think that's true. And that is the shining lights of this film, is that there is that parallel story of revenge, and we're led to believe in the film that they have the capacity for this.
Yes.
So, Chuck, if you're good, probably need to step away for a quick break.
It's a cinematic flashback. Let the show begin. It's a cinematic flashback. Let the show begin.
Well, Matt, I think it's time to ask the question. Did Orca win us over, or should it have gone kaboom? Where did this one land for you?
So I will say that an all-star cast, great writing team, and a follow-up rewrite to make it better, and a reasonable budget for special effects, all can be put together and still make a turd of a movie. And that is where we are. Unfortunately for me, this was not a great movie. It's not really a great homage to Jaws. I didn't find I had the same visceral dread that Jaws gave, and the inevitability of innocents being killed, right? In Jaws, people are at the beach, there's kids in the inlet, the shark goes in the inlet, everybody's very stressed out, the poor kid gets eaten out in the surf, all of that. The only time they have any problem is they brought it on themselves, and then the other time they have problem is they go out on the boat and follow this whale until the whale turns around and proceeds to tear them up. So to me, it's like I have absolutely no sympathy. It's like, turn around, turn the boat around. You're insane to get on a boat with this man. So to me, I literally did not care what happened to anybody except the marine biologist. I wanted her to survive, and they did deliver on that.
Matt, I think your solution for all of life's problems, whenever a killer truck is chasing you down, or maybe an orca is leading you out to sea, turn around, just turn around.
There's a great skit where people are making fun of horror movies, and the comedian's like, if you walk into the house and the house says, get out, you get out. Don't stay. Anyway, it's just too funny. Our typical question is, did it groove through the decades, or did it lose its beat? My answer is, I don't think this ever had a beat. It's a shame. So I don't think it grooves now. My lament for this film is that it would have been very easy to make it a really great film. That's my personal belief. A few changes in the script where the meeting with the whale was inadvertent, totally accidental, not he was out to try to capture one, but something else happened. He tried to help the whale, and the whale misunderstood him trying to help and went on this vengeance streak. After that, everything would have been like, hey, I was just trying to help. I was trying to save her. She ran into the prop, and now I'm trying to save her. I'm not trying to capture her, but the whale doesn't understand because the whale is a dumb animal. But that would have...
They got the biggest brains. Don't you remember what Charlotte Rampling told us? It has the biggest brain of all.
I get it. They have a big brain, but it can be mistaken.
Okay.
Anyway, to me, that would have made it a better film. You would have been a lot more emotionally involved. The deaths of the crew members would have been much more impactful if they had been done in the pursuit of trying to help this whale, not capture it. So anyway, I say it didn't groove then. It doesn't groove for me now, which is a shame because it could have been a great film.
I hear you. And I think it's a bit of an oddity because, both these films that we're looking at, we're not approaching them with high bars of expectation. So my bar was also set very, very low. I thought it was going to be just a shameless Jaws knockoff, only with an orca. But what really surprised me is when I started researching all of the Italian names that I was seeing in the opening credits. Clearly, the people that were making the film believed that they were making something more than just a creature feature. Having Richard Harris play Nolan more as a tragic figure rather than an action hero was different than I was expecting. Charlotte Rampling and Will Sampson make the Richard Dreyfuss character Ennio Morricone's score treats the story like a tragedy from beginning to the very end. What really caught me off guard was how much that this movie was about the themes of grief, guilt, and revenge. And then by the time Nolan reaches the Arctic, it's really not a movie about a killer whale anymore. It's about two grieving fathers who have lost their families and they just can't let it go. So no, Orca is not Jaws, but I thought it was better than what its reputation would suggest. I expected to spend this episode pointing out everything that didn't work. And instead, I found myself getting invested in the characters. And surprisingly, I was genuinely moved by its melancholy final moments. So Orca isn't a lost masterpiece. It's not even a hidden gem. But nearly 50 years later, people still remember it. That's a lot more than what can be said for most of the other Jaws imitators that had followed. Matt, do you have any final thoughts before we close up today?
I would just say, Chuck, you always do a great job of sort of giving the film its due. And I agree with what you're saying. I just still think it was a missed opportunity.
There should have been a big kaboom.
Yeah. No. I mean, a missed opportunity. I agree with the second half of the film. It's just the setup in the first half.
Yeah.
Doesn't lead you into a really deep caring for the characters. I mean, I really did not care about any of them. And I figured, oh, look at all these guys getting on the boat with this knucklehead. They're all going to die for sure. 100%.
We know why they're there.
Yeah. I mean, they all had red shirts on the away team.
So, oh my gosh. We made a Star Trek reference in this one. Thank you, Matt. You're my friend.
So anyway, I think it's worth watching on a rainy day. And if you're a Jaws fan, it's funny. If you're a Richard Harris fan, you really get a peek into his younger cinematic role, which is really quite good.
All right. Join us in 2 weeks as we continue our Jawsploitation theme with Joe Dante's Piranha from 1978, starring Bradford Dillman, Heather Menzies, Kevin McCarthy, and returning from White Line Fever, Dick Miller. At first glance, Piranha looks like exactly the kind of movie that only could have existed after Jaws changed Hollywood forever. But as we'll discover, Joe Dante brought a sense of humor, satire, and just enough bite to turn what could have been a simple cash-in into something much more memorable. We'll talk about Roger Corman, government experiments gone wrong, and an awful lot of hungry fish. And until then, stay in the boat, stay out of the water.
We want to thank you for taking the time to tune in. If you've seen Orca, reach out and let us know your thoughts. You can find us on Facebook or leave us a message over at cinematicflashback.com. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you're enjoying the podcast, please give us a rating and a review. We really appreciate it. And your review just might get read on the air. And if you've been enjoying the show, tell your friends and family about what we still proudly believe is the best podcast dedicated to 1970s cinema. Join us next time as we hop into the Wayback Machine and head once again to the 1970s for another classic. Until then, stay out of the water, and we'll see you next time.
Flashback to the tales untold, where the heroes were gritty, the villains were bold. From the